Hello and welcome. My name is Gruss and I'm a managing director and partner here at BCG, focusing on business transformation. Today I'm joined by Jochen Engert, the co-founder and supervisory board director of the transportation company Flix. Jochen, thank you so much for joining.
Hey Christian, thanks for having me.
Today we would like to discuss resilience, a topic that very much applies to Flix and its division Flixbus and Flix Train. To begin, Jochen, since the company's founding in 2011, how did the resilience mindset help you and your team through the startup phase and help you transform the company into what it is today?
I mean, for me, if you're founding a startup, resilience is one of the key ingredients, and you basically go through that roller coaster along the journey. So this was a resilience, and that mindset was a good friend of ours all along the way. So you have all sorts of things that go well and other things that don't go well, impact factors from the outside, competition, macro, you name it. So we kind of get used to that mindset anyways, and it helps you to work through also difficult situations, to sort of make yourself aware that this is just what it is, and just get yourself in that mindset in general, and helps you as a founder, as a leader, and ultimately also to kind of get this to your team, that this is the mindset that you need to have to build a business.
Jochen, fast forwarding to 2019, basically the world faced a pandemic that led to a shutdown. Did Flix and you and the leadership team have an emergency plan in place for a crisis like that?
I would be lying if I'd say yes. So we didn't have any plan for this. And I think if you look at how governments reacted, nobody really had a plan for this. And neither did we. We underestimated the situation. And this Black Swan event is something that's really, really difficult to prepare for, especially if you're a young company that's growing very fast. And you can imagine we've been growing 40-50% January, February 2020. And then the business effectively came to a complete stop within a few days only. So you see this whole thing fall apart. And this was a shock for us. And then it's really down again to that resilience mindset. How do you react to it? How do you make fast decisions? How do you get all the decision makers into one room? How do you get all the data and information that you have out there into one room and take the right decisions under massive uncertainty? That's sort of the big complexity in that situation. But as I said, I think we've managed well ultimately, and came out stronger.
Jochen, what were the concrete actions you took as the pandemic unfolded to navigate that crisis? And looking back now, how do you now evaluate the results?
I mean, for us in the first phase, it was all about, this is an emergency. Everybody needs to also, on the team, have that sense of urgency that this is really about life and death for us. We weren't sure if we were going to survive this crisis. So we needed to make sure that everybody has this as their top priority as urgently as possible on their agenda. Then we said, let's get all the decision makers and all the data points that we have into one room effectively. So we built a war room to really be able to react very quickly to whatever info pieces we got from the outside world. And then we've been sort of trying to build a strategy around how do we save cash? How do we bring costs down? How do we help our partners who operate the fleet to also navigate through it? And how do we, and this is the big driver for us around how do you sort of protect your balance sheet? How do you manage capacity? So adjust capacity downwards at the beginning, but also be able to adjust upwards once demand was coming back through the different phases of the pandemic. And then at some point, and this was to me the most difficult part, how do you manage motivation on the team where everybody just sees that gloomy world out there and has all this insecurity and uncertainty around what is going to happen and what does that mean for me? Is my job going to be there tomorrow or not? This is the most difficult piece. And that's where we said, at some point, you also need to build a very strong long-term narrative to give that confidence to the team and a certain sort of portion of optimism to the team that we're going to navigate through and ultimately come out stronger. And I mean, looking now in hindsight, this is effectively what happened. Like we've managed really well, very much data-driven decision-making, really were strongly able to adjust our capacity to demand patterns. Still made sure we didn't lose too much money. Of course, we did lose a significant amount of money through the pandemic, but we were healthier than everybody else. And this was putting us into a position where first, survival is a competitive advantage in itself. And then second, this gave us a lot of opportunity to also drive market share, consolidate market further, and really build out our position to an even stronger market leader in all of our geographies. And that's what we see now. So the business is stronger than ever. Very strong financials, super strong unit economics, and incredibly strong market position. So all the hard work has paid off.
Jochen, great to hear there were also some upsides in that situation. And indeed, from a business perspective, what were the biggest opportunities that you could capture?
I mean, we knew that we'd be stronger than our competition through the pandemic, and we knew there would be M&A opportunities somewhere along the way. I mean, as for those of you who followed the story, may have noticed that we bought Greyhound pretty much at the sort of outskirts of the pandemic, so late 21. And this was a massive step for us. And I think it only was possible, and also possible at those terms, through the pandemic, because they were hurt very badly. The owners wanted to sort of sell off the business, and we were in a position where we could actually execute on such a deal because we had the strength as an organization, strength as a team, and sufficient funding, and could then do this. And this was the big time move to consolidate the US market and make us the clear market leader there, and also give us a lot of synergies on sort of integrating the businesses. So this was certainly a massive milestone move for us that wouldn't have been possible without the pandemic and I guess all the reactions that we had to that.
Jochen, now let us look forward. How is the company preparing for the uncertainties that you are facing around economy, sustainability, and regulation?
I mean, the big thing that we learned and that the whole organization, the company learned through the pandemic is really how do you take very fast decisions and how do you make sure that you have all the data ready to take these decisions? And also then in a sort of second phase, how do you build systems, tools, processes to have these early indicators that help you understand your business much better and take that look into the future relatively early? And I think this is something that we've built, that where we've also built technology for and built internal routines and processes to help us make these decisions. And this is something that we figured is also helping us now to really be much more granular around how do we adjust our capacity, how do we manage marketing, how do we manage pricing, etc., to really max out on the commercial opportunities in the market. And this is something where we feel we've built a skill set that's actually super valuable and a strategic asset in itself. And this is something, as I said, that we take out as a strong benefit out of this crisis and catastrophe in our industry.
Jochen, finally, what advice would you give leaders about resilience and strategizing for the future?
There's maybe two things. First, to me, the one big thing is thinking in scenarios. Is really about building scenarios. How can the future look like and what do you need to do now to prepare for that future? And the second one, and this was the big one for us in that crisis and in that very moment of emergency, is all about communication. So you need to communicate the situation to your teams. You need to communicate the urgency, but at the same time, you need to give them confidence and optimism that you'll jointly work through this and that you as a team, as a company, as an organization come out stronger. So this is, to me, the two big learnings that we took out of it.
Jochen, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your insights.
You're most welcome. Always good to be somewhat back at BCG in whatever format.